Babylon is here, so let's continue our in-depth look at the newest servants. Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with another servant spotlight, this time for the newest Gorgon loli, Medusa Lancer. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. Now, onto Medusa's stats. Medusa has a max HP of 13,119, which is both very high for a 4-star Lancer and very high overall compared to the other 4-star servants. But her max attack of 8,253 is low for a 4-star Lancer, and when factoring in the 1.05 times Lancer modifier, her attack of 8,665 is still low when compared to the attack of the other 4-star servants. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Siren Song rank B. It has between a 60 and 90% chance to inflict charm on a male enemy for 1 turn, depending on level. Her second skill is Monster Strength rank C. It increases her attack for 1 turn between 10 and 30% depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Distant Thoughts rank A, which applies Guts 1 time for 3 turns, reviving her with between 1000 and 3000 HP depending on level, and it also applies invincibility to her for 1 time. Taking a look at her passives, she has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases her debuff resist by 17.5%, and Core of the Goddess rank A, which applies damage plus 250 to her attacks and increases her debuff resist by 25%. Moving on to her deck and Noble Phantasm, Medusa Lancer has a Quick Arts deck with Quick Arts Buster and a Quick Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Caress of the Medusa. It deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 1200% and 2000% damage modifier, depending on level, and it has a chance to inflict stun for 1 turn between 80% and 160% depending on overcharge. This can be further strengthened through an interlude, which will increase the damage modifier to between 1600% and 2400%, and also adds the effect of decreasing enemy quick card resist for 3 turns by 20%. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her quick card hits 3 times, her arts hits 4 times, her buster hits once, and her extra attack hits 5 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.44% and a star rate of 12.2%. This translates into just average Noble Phantasm gain due to the good NP gain on her arts cards, but very poor NP gain on her quick and extra, and her star generating is also average. Medusa Lancer has a very distinct old school feel, and not in a good way. Based on her gameplay design, it really does feel like she was made years ago alongside the original launch servants. This is primarily due to her having a disproportionately high HP stat for a supposedly offensive servant and a very basic and uninspired skill set, a problem that many of the original servants had. Her first skill, Siren Song, is just a straightforward charm. It only works on male enemies, much like the charm skills of her sisters, Steno and Ureli. However, unlike their charm, Medusa Lancer's charm only has a 90% hit chance at max rank instead of 100%, and that 10% differential does make a difference. Her second skill, Monstrous Strength, is a 30% attack buff for 1 turn. Again, a very basic skill without any complexity or nuance, and a pretty bad one at that. This buff is only 30% and only lasts a single turn. It won't have much effect on your overall damage through the course of a battle, other than being a lackluster steroid for your Noble Phantasm. For comparison's sake, Herc has a 31% attack buff that lasts for 3 turns with the same cooldown, and most 1-turn attack buffs like Mana Burst are almost twice as strong as Medusa's. And finally, Medusa Lancer's last skill is her most unique. Distant Thoughts is both a Guts and an Invincibility. This is actually a pretty good skill, as the invincibility is 1 hit, not 1 turn, meaning it's guaranteed to protect you from something and you can't really waste it. It's especially great for eating an enemy Noble Phantasm. And the Guts is also very nice. This skill is something like a double insurance policy, which makes Medusa Lancer pretty tanky. Just keep in mind that the Guts only last for 3 turns instead of the standard 5, so you have to make sure you time it properly or you're going to miss your window of opportunity. For skill order, you're going to want to level up Monstrous Strength first, since that's your main damage buff, followed by Siren Song so you can improve the hit rate, and then finally Distant Thoughts. It has to be said that Medusa Lancer's skill set is atrocious. In fact, her 3-star counterpart has a straight up better version of Medusa Lancer's first 2 skills. The lack of original and unique skills really hurts Medusa Lancer, but thankfully, her Noble Phantasm isn't as disappointing. Caress of the Medusa is a single target Noble Phantasm with a stun chance, very similar to Skahak and Enkidu, 2 of the best Lancers in the game. And post-interlude, this Noble Phantasm even gets an effect that decreases enemy quick card resist by 20%, which essentially equates to a 20% quick buff for your whole team against the enemy that you hit. Medusa Lancer's Noble Phantasm is very good and is where most of her utility and power comes from. Keep in mind that the stun chance on her Noble Phantasm isn't guaranteed though, so it's far less reliable than Skahak's or Enkidu's. And while it is single target, Medusa's subpar attack stat and bad attack buff don't do it any favors, so don't expect any explosive damage from your Noble Phantasm either. So a very bad skill set and a good, if somewhat weak, Noble Phantasm. What does that mean for Medusa Lancer? Primarily it means you want to Noble Phantasm as much as possible. However, again, Medusa Lancer is plagued by an issue. This time, it's inadequate NP gain. Her NP gain isn't horrible, it is good on her arts cards, but it isn't amazing and nowhere near enough to spam your Noble Phantasm as much as you'd like to. So you're going to be limited to usually only 1 or 2 NPs per match. But perhaps the biggest problem with Medusa Lancer is that her skill cooldowns are horrendous. 7 turns at max rank for her guts and her charm, and even though her attack buff only has a 5-turn cooldown, it's only active for 1 turn, so 80% of the time you will not have this buff active. But Medusa Lancer isn't all bad. She does still have decent damage potential if you can provide her with good buffers. But more importantly, she does have a unique niche as a high utility staller on quick teams. Very similar to her sisters, Medusa Lancer packs 2 means of stunning opponents with a charm and a stun, so bringing her against male enemies can result in chain stuns, and once her Noble Phantasm interlude releases, she gains further utility as a damage buffer on quick teams. Thanks to her 3rd skill in high HP, she's also fairly tanky so she can stick around for a while, and this makes her work much better as a semi-support on quick teams than as anything else. Designing a team around Medusa Lancer can be difficult. Your 2 choices are going to be either surrounding her with supports and using her offensively, or you can go with the better but more niche role of using her as a quick team support. If you plan to use her offensively, some good support choices include Atlanta, Alexander, and Steno. Atlanta provides a monstrous quick buff that will drastically improve your Noble Phantasm damage. If you want to make your Noble Phantasm damage as high as possible, then go with her. If you favor improving your overall damage to be more consistent, including your non-Noble Phantasm damage, then Alexander has 2 smaller buffs that have very low cooldowns to give you consistently good damage across the board. And as a bonus, he also packs a charm for even more stuns. Steno fulfills a similar role, providing a huge 40% attack buff since Medusa Lancer has the Divine trait. And she also packs 2 charms in a full quick deck, providing a good amount of star generating, damage buffing, and stalling. If you want to use Medusa Lancer to support your stronger quick servants instead, then you can provide a lot of support to servants like Tristan and Skahak. Tristan is a bit of a stally servant himself, but he can make Medusa even tankier thanks to his AoE evade, and also make it easier for her to land her charm and stun because his Noble Phantasm will decrease enemy debuff resist by a whopping 30%, giving both your charm and stun over 100% hit chance. Skahak benefits a lot from the quick resist down effect on Medusa's Noble Phantasm, as do most single target quick servants like Caesar, Okita, or Rider Kentoki. And with a stun of her own, Medusa and Skahak can keep an enemy chain stunned for a while. Medusa Lancer's Bondcraft Essence is Impossible Tomorrow, which increases Noble Phantasm gain and quick card effectiveness of all allies by 10%. A very good Bondcraft Essence, and I highly recommend it if you're going to be using her as a support. As for other worthwhile craft essences to use on her, if you're using her as a quick support, you want to ensure that you can land your stuns and charms, so Record Holder benefits her a lot. as does Noisy Obsession, or an NP gain craft essence like Magical Girl of Sapphire. If you want to use Medusa Lancer offensively, go for craft essences that buff your damage, like Imaginary Around, Dumplings Over Flowers, or even Black Grail if you want to be more risky. For a bit of future proofing, Someday in Summer is a fantastic craft essence for her for getting your Noble Phantasm off quickly. Overall, Medusa Lancer has many flaws, a seriously outdated and underwhelming skill set that already suffers from power creep, insanely long cooldowns, low attack, a bad attack buff, and inadequate Noble Phantasm gain. But on the plus side, she does work well in very niche situations as a quick support, she has a good utility with her stun lock and quick resistance debuff, and she can be pretty tanky. However, her situational usefulness does not outweigh her huge negatives, so she gets a C from me. To clarify, this doesn't mean she's horrible or unusable, but she is vastly outclassed by most Lancers, and there are better quick supports. For example, her sister Steno beats her across the board in utility by a gigantic margin. Medusa Lancer is workable if you want to use her, but it does take a lot of investment and compensating for what she lacks. And those are my thoughts on Medusa Lancer, and for those of you who are not keeping track, this was actually my 100th Spotlight video, and I can't think of a more deserving servant to cover in my 100th video than Medusa Lancer. For real though, I just want to thank all of you guys for watching, whether you've been here from the beginning or if this is even your first time watching one of my spotlights. I couldn't have gone here without the love and support of this great community. I love you guys, and I hope you continue to watch and enjoy these spotlights as we march onwards to 200. If you're excited for more FGO, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing if you're really excited. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.